it's Cars Keys. Let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our texts like car thieves. Breakdown, we study tape and thrive.
Analytical preparation, that's what Cars is given. Cars don't discriminate, teaching the men and women. Each and every week, Bears nerd to get your focus. Never manipulating stats, lore, cars, no hocus pocus. Cars Keys, they never lost. Checking source, never gonna find a better scouting report. Cars going live with the smartest man, my bestie. Deciphering holes on the defense like Getsy. New show, uniforms, orange with the dark sea. Tape never lies, patrons, this is Cars
You know
Keys.
it's Cars Keys. Let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our texts like car thieves. Breakdown, we study tape and thrive. We gotta break down tape like detectives. No hot takes, just real football perspectives. The Bears nerd dropping science on his terms. TTNL giving Bears press like a perm. Other networks is off with the heads. Stats plus film equals football cred. Analysis like Data Ted tries to shred. McCaskey's letting me cake, we keep the 100 crew fed. Cars Keys, let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our texts like car thieves. Breakdown, we study tape and thrive. Lord Hines in his car, fill up a goblet. Lord Hines in his car, fill up a goblet.
Ding dong, the season is dead. Cars Keys season finale. Season 1, episode 21. I am not Keith Lockett. I am Shane fucking Marsaw, Keith. Come see me, pussy. All right, let's get into this.
I have no idea what just happened there. But
I had to address some pussies in the, you know. Keith.
I mean, we're coming out strong. I got nothing else. It was a great show. Thanks.
Not
everybody.
even cleaning it up in post. Fuck it. No, what's up, Cars?
How you doing? It's kind of crazy right now to all of a sudden be here. And really, if you told me that we'd come onto this show and we'd already have a new president announced for next season, and we're being lauded for it by the media. I don't really know what to make of what's happened these last two off seasons, but man, it's nice to get some positive press for once.
It is. It feels weird. You know, I was at work today and felt good to be able to get back in the groove of some sports radio, and they'll be like, we got a segment coming up on the NFL draft, and the first team right out the gate is going to be the Chicago Bears whenever they're talking about it. It's kind of nice. You know, we got to deal with the nonsense of the quarterback talk, and, we're going to be dealing with that until probably, early to mid April before a trade, gets pulled off. But it is what it is. It comes with the territory. I mean, we've dealt with a lot of shit for a lot of years as Bears fans. If we have to put up with it for a couple of more months, I'm willing to do that, because between now and then, Cars, like you said, the hype with Kevin Warren, and if you guys go back and watch Phil with Chris Zorich today, there's a lot of good insight there to get you excited about. It feels like finally,
yes,
the Bears have figured it out. Our guy HL Priest DM'd me, and he's like, what do you think changed for George, to kind of figure this out? And it's, hey, when you have a $6 billion project on the horizon and you don't know what the fuck you're doing, that changes your direction. That's why you bring somebody else in.
I think it's even more than that, because because I don't think even that happens if the direction doesn't change earlier. What I had said, HL had said the same thing, asked the same thing of me. And my thing was, I think it was twofold. One was Virginia getting older, but excuse me, I also think the biggest issue was when they made the decision to keep Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy for the extra year, they were vilified, which is not something that they were absolutely used to. And they had already preemptively tried to make that change in the way that the GM would report up separately to Ted, and they'd made those things. But I don't think they were expecting the vitriol that they got
Yeah.
from all of the fans. And I think that really became a wake up moment for everybody. So, yeah, I think to your point, Warren is an extension of that
Yep.
stadium. But really, the whole moment with the McCaskey family
Oh yeah.
screwing up, keeping those guys for another year, and trying to tell everybody like, "Hey, we've done everything right, but win games, guys. What more do you expect?" And everyone's like, "Win games.
Yeah.
That's what we expect."
Yeah, you're 100% right, man. It is. It's bits and pieces of it all, and it's
Yeah,
think about where we were just a couple of years ago when the
covering that presser.
the collaboration and you're like, holy shit, we got to go through this again. And I said the only way that the Bears can is you're sold on Mitch if you're Ryan Pace, but we're gonna keep John Fox here for one extra year while we sell out and go after this kid.
Yeah.
Right. Then they did the same goddamn thing with Justin Fields. We're gonna, we're not sold on this guy, but we'll see. And you're essentially pissing away an entire rookie season of a guy that you traded up for. Listen, none of the change matters unless it works, but it's refreshing because there's change where we've never seen it before. We've never been at number one. Ted his last day is what, February 27th or 28th?
Yep.
Warren comes in on April 17th. I think they said is his first official day. So it's that in and of itself is very refreshing. And every GM under Ted Phillips since 99, the power structure has been the general manager reports to Ted.
Yep.
Until Ryan Poles got here. That wasn't in place for Ryan Poles. Ryan Poles reported directly to George. Now they're reverting back to Ryan Poles, and it says a lot.
Absolutely.
Hogan Johns talked about that, the Bears crafting the statement and putting that as the second sentence says a lot. When you want to say that Ryan Poles is the most powerful man in the organization now, that is not true. Kevin Warren comes in here with the ultimate power. He's going to oversee the GM. It's going to be interesting to see how that is. Ryan Poles has a guy, not the owner, that he has to report to now. And listen, obviously they're going to have a strong relationship. But if this Kevin Warren, you get a year in, 2 years in, if this isn't fitting into his vision, he's going to be the guy that's going to be blowing it up and starting over. And listen, the one thing you can say about the Bears, they make a lot of bad decisions, but Kevin Warren is going to be here for a very, very long time, as long as he wants to be.
So there's two things I want to say to what you said. So one, I agreed with what you said, that there's no guarantee that would work. The nice part is the Bears front office finally realized that doing it the same way that they've always done it wasn't going to work, right? Yeah. So I'll take it may not work, and it's a big thing. The other part with Warren that I find really interesting is that many people in league circles had him as kind of a front runner to eventually replace Roger Goodell as commissioner of the league. If that doesn't tell you how highly this person is thought of, I mean, it could be that he gets us the stadium and whatever else, and then he bounces to the next thing.
Yep.
But it is nice to, again, get someone that is so well thought of, that has such potential into this thing. We have no idea where it's going to go, but I think, again, going back to my earlier statement, it's really refreshing to not be walking into this offseason and knowing 100% that this isn't going to work and that it's going to be a failure.
Yeah, and we will probably never know all of the the people that they talked to and everybody that was involved, truthfully. But he had the ultimate trump card up his sleeve with the work that he did in Minnesota with the stadium. I mean, there's a lot of people that believe that is, in terms of stadiums, that is the Mecca in the NFL. I've heard lots and lots of people say that it's just, you know, it's that nice. And you look, you know, they were making fun of Ted Phillips, you know, in his bio, one of the bullet points that they're praising him for is the renovation of Soldier Field. And I mean, that was
one of the worst,
relevant for what, 12 months, you know, one football season before
one of the worst deals ever negotiated because of parking and everything else. And the simple fact that he got hoodwinked by the city into thinking that they would keep the historical landmarker and built such an ugly stadium that they didn't. And you know, I've kept a running tally, right? Like, we have a losing record in 23 years, basically, of his reign. So it is nice. It is really nice to again, just to be legitimately able to have some positive. And I threw this up because well, this is a safe space since Phil's not here. But no, there's a reason that Shane keeps mentioning kind of what Daniel Jeremiah and others have said, which is, you know, when you see him, you're going to see how small he really is. This is it would not shock me. This is why I continue.
And when we say small cars, it's not so much even the height is subpar to what you want, but it's more frame.
There's not a lot of space for him to get up to a 220. You know, this isn't a guy who can be like a Russell Wilson, who's a smaller, shorter overall quarterback, but can it feels weird to be saying in a podcast about football, like, we need this dude thick, but you know, he just doesn't have that frame. So I think when we talked about it kind of the other day, is a lot of people have said that he's like Joe Burrow, except, you know, he's 5 or 6 inches shorter, 30 to 40 pounds lighter. He's just, you know, teams that would take a shot at him, I think we talked about, Shane, would be teams that are in warmer climate or dome climates that could protect him better.
Yeah.
But even then, I am super concerned about the hits. And to go back to this part, Jake, there, Mr. Ryan Cox in the vaunted secret text chain had said that there's a belief that CJ declaring could come down to NIL money. And if enough boosters are willing to pay CJ Stroud enough money, that he would leave the draft and stay at Ohio State, which is why he still hasn't declared. So that is something to be keep your eye on. But the good news is, don't worry, all sunglass avatared man. There is Will Levis, a white guy who could move up the draft boards for everybody and make everybody feel good. But
yeah, and I know we're talking about it and regurgitating a lot of the same information with Bryce. Listen, his accuracy is elite. His anticipation is even better. And that has to be if you're going to be that size. Yeah, and that's the thing. But frame, body structure is 100% going to matter. And I know people were asking me about Drew Brees. Drew Brees at the combine weighed in at 213 pounds and measured at 6 feet. There's a lot of people out there that are saying he's going to be sub 5'10" and 180 pounds maybe. And I'll be shocked. Cars, listen, you and I are looking at this from the same perspective. We're not looking at it from a coaching aspect. If you're his agent, are you taking him to the combine and letting him get measured and weighed?
Oh, God,
no fucking way. There's no way.
And just to be clear, we all have seen that he is shorter than Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray measured at 5'10" and like an eighth of an inch. Supposedly, when he got recruited, Bryce Young was 5'11". But if any of you played any high school sport, whether it's football, basketball, everybody lies on how tall, how strong, how big anybody is. So we've all seen it where he looks shorter. That tells me he's a 5'9" guy. And you're right, they're not going to let him get measured at the combine. But holy crap, anybody, when they walk into a room and stand next to him, you don't think that, like,
right.
Eberflus isn't a big guy.
This motherfucker's going to be wearing his shoulder pads into the meetings.
Oh, I mean, he's got to wear like lifts or something to, like he's got to wear shoes that have like 2 or 3 inch insoles. I think Roger is absolutely right that he will still probably go with a top 3 or 4 because this is it's such a premium position, and B, there's not a deep draft.
Let's be honest, he's going to be in play at number 1 because if Irsay is calling the shots, you may see Levis go number 1. I mean,
I still think that's a very good shot, to be honest. Yeah, he's got all the measurables and other things, and you can talk yourself into it.
Nobody, to Mike's point, nobody is calling him a bad quarterback. It's all based off body type. And I mean, can you project him? Listen, part of an analysis in a quarterback especially is projecting. And is he a guy that you can project out? Listen, part of the talk is going to be, are you going to take this Southern California kid that went and played collegiate ball down south? And a lot of these guys, he's probably never played in a football game that's been under 60 degrees. Let's be quite honest.
Well,
project him into Soldier Field when it's 8 degrees and the wind chill is 17 below and there's snow on the ground and the wind is swirling and you're 5'9", 180 pounds. And again, he is athletic enough, but normally guys that are that small are wildly athletic, like a Kyler Murray, like a Michael Vick. That's not Bryce. Bryce is one of those guys that is 100% pass first, pass always. If you have to bail, you bail, and he'll get you some yards when he needs to, but he's not a wildly athletic kid.
Well, and to piggyback onto that, if you're the Indianapolis Colts and you trade up, your team that just gave up on your own team 60 sacks last year. And if you move up, you're not going to have a lot of picks to go reinvest inside of that offensive line. So you're basically going to stick a 5'9", 185-pound guy back there to get destroyed game in, game out. That does matter. The Texans protected the quarterback a little bit better, but more of that was Davis Mills, kind of delivering quickly. But it factors in, a quarterback that gets that little. How many games do we know that he got hit really hard and knocked out for a little while, right?
Sure.
Like it was significant. And again, if that guy was 6'2" and 210, 215, no questions, first pick, run. Teams would sprint to the podium at that, but he's not. And you just, I don't care how much muscle milk he drinks and whey protein shakes and whatever else. He does not have the frame to go sit down and take a beating that even Kyler Murray did.
Yeah, so I'm looking back here. High school, they had him listed at 5'11", 183 pounds. When he got to Tuscaloosa, they had him listed at 6 foot 194 initially, and now they have him at 6 foot 200 pounds. Or no, I guess this is for the 2022 season, 6 foot 194. And Cars, you saw the picture that he's in when they do the Heisman house. So he's standing there with Kyler Murray, and there's, I don't know if I have it right here that I can pop up. I don't think I do anymore, but oh yeah, I do. Let me just upload it real quick just so you can see it, and you just look at their eyes straight across from each other, and you can see the difference. You see the difference in the frame. You see the difference in height.
The one I want to use the most is always, because it's very similar, is Devonta Smith.
Yeah.
Alabama listed him at 6 feet, 185 pounds, and he's been 5'11 3/4 and 170 ever since he was in the NFL.
Yeah.
He did not get smaller when he joined the NFL. That is just who he is.
No part about Devonta that's been 180 pounds, but here's it's an ad that, who's the better golfer there, but you can just see the frame. I mean, it's not a great picture, but Kyler is listed at 5'10", and that's what his height was measured at in Indy. At the combine. I mean, if Kyler Murray is officially 5'10", there's no way that Bryce Young is 6 foot. There's no way that he's 5'11". And then you're talking about weight. What do you know what they have Kyler Murray's weight listed at officially, Cars?
I don't. I can look it up, but I mean I think he's
just bringing it up now too.
He weighed 207 pounds at the combine, and I think he's added up a little bit, but he measured at 5'10" and 1/8 inch at the combine. You're not going to be able to do much with
but I mean, even if you say 207, that's on a fantastic day for Bryce Young. Let's say he's 187. You're talking 20 pounds. That is a massive difference.
I mean, look at since we're going to use Indy, look at the hit that Thibodeau put on Nick Foles, who's a bigger guy. Now picture that on little Bryce, right? Like those big high collision. Picture some of the hits that you saw Justin Fields take this year. Now subtract inches and subtract about 40 to 50 pounds, because I think Justin plays about 230-ish.
Yeah.
And imagine what that's going to go. It doesn't mean that he won't get there, but the best case scenario is kind of the Drew Brees scenario, where it takes him 3 to 4 years before he finally puts it together and figures out how to do his create throwing lanes and to do all that. And that is best case, because I don't know how if he goes to Indy, I don't know how he survives year one. I just don't.
Yeah. And this is not an indictment on him, the quarterback, and how.
Oh, love the prospect. Great
prospect. So to Phil's point, on tape, he's fantastic. He's cool as a cucumber. But there's other factors, especially at that position. So it is all gonna come up but at the same time, Cars, listen, we went through the Ryan Pace era and all of the warts that were involved with that. Ryan Poles has to look at this like this is his only opportunity that in his entire career as a general manager that he is going to be here. I know we don't expect it to happen, but you still have to do your due diligence up there and spend time. You have to bring him into Hallis Hall.
Absolutely.
You have to sit down with him. You have to put him up on the board. You have to do all of that. Listen, it's all this is why it's critical. And this is why communication is key. Hopefully this has already been done, and I'm assuming that it is, that he's talked to Justin. He's made his thoughts very well known to Justin, and you tell him, you're our guy. You're going to be our guy, but you may hear some things during this process that may not make you exactly happy. And listen,
just like what Poles said, where
exactly.
he said, yeah, I'd have to be blown away. Too many people have taken that comment and run with that. They've already told him that what they were going to say. He knew, so it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this all plays out. And
absolutely,
Ryan Poles is doing his job. I did see one thing in there. Thunder Girl put up their cards. I think you can talk on this.
No, he absolutely won't be, especially because if his job isn't officially starting. And he's not going to really listen. The way that this position is defined and set up is this will not be anything that he's dealing with. While Ryan Poles will report into him and they will talk about things from a financial perspective, all of that's already been laid out in an interview process. Where Warren probably has most of his things is in upper levels of management relationships. So no, I don't really expect him at all to be involved, even if it was. The way we all need to view what's going to happen is free agency is going to be fast and furious, especially for the Bears, and that basically we will trade the pick sometime after mid-March. So around a month before he starts is when the real trade window for that number 1 pick happens, because that's post-combine, post-pro days, post a whole bunch of other things. So no, he's a front office guy. Even though the general manager reports into him, it's more of a managerial portion.
Yeah, that's going to be the structure. And listen, back in the day, Ted wasn't going and saying you're going to sign this guy. They were bringing contract proposals. He was directly involved in that, and he would nix things. But Kevin Warren, if you see, let's be honest, if Justin Fields is the guy and the Bears invest a long-term contract into him when that time comes, that's when you're going to see Kevin Warren and you're sitting down, you're talking numbers. That's when he's going to be directly involved. He's the overseer of everything Chicago Bears. He's reporting to one guy, Kevin Warren is, and that's going to be to George, and that's it. Ryan Poles used to be the one, his one guy that he would report to was George. He did not report to Ted at any point under his tenure. That changes.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be very interesting, and it's going to be a historic offseason for this franchise. It doesn't mean the Bears have a lot of, momentum going forward, but none of it means anything, Cars, as we know. If they don't do their due diligence, if they don't draft well, if they don't bring in some guys in free agency that can listen, free agency isn't a place where you're going to get a lot of franchise changers, but you need guys that can make some impact and can add to the talent of your team. But you also can't invest a ton of money into a guy that brings you nothing. That you can't go down that road at all. So it's going to be, you got to hit. It's time to work. The neon lights are on. The radar is on Ryan Poles' forehead. It's on Matt Eberflus's forehead.
Absolutely.
It's on Justin Fields' forehead. Getting passes and saying that the roster sucks and all of that. The 2022 season's over. Now it's time to get to work. Now we have to see substantial progress. And if we don't, we're going to be here to call them out.
Absolutely.
What do we got, sir?
So I hope everybody brought their TI calculators, their Trapper Keepers, and number 2 pencils. So really the idea is I want to get people a little bit familiar with some of the terms around free agency, right? Just so people can understand and get a little bit clearer of a picture of what these things mean, what the cap looks like, how it's going to impact some of the moves. And then I am going to show kind of a few examples, or at least one example of of kind of like what a trade potentially would look like. Jason, it is Scantron. So much like when I did my ACTs, if you don't know the answer, it's always C. So just remember that one as well. So really, first and foremost, it's everybody's favorite part. Cards is way too small printed graphics. All right, but we want to start off kind of simple here. So few terms I want to make sure everybody is familiar with. So some things like dead cap, you heard me talk a lot about this. Dead cap is factored in basically of when you hear a contract is signed and there is guaranteed money. That guaranteed money in the way that it flows becomes of value. So whereas my cap number may be 20 million, my dead cap number means 40 million. And that is because I have an additional $20 million or plus of guarantees onto this deal. So when I make a move of a player, like let's take again the Khalil Mack trade, right? Where there was guaranteed money still on the books for the Bears. When we traded that person, we still accepted the guarantee. So all that dead cap still sits on our cap today. That is how we're in a place where we have more money in active or in dead cap than we do on active salary. Things like void years. So void years is basically I add on.
Just call them Ryan Pace years. Carter.
Ryan Pace years. We're starting to hear this is what's been going on in Green Bay. But it's basically like I add a fake year at the end of somebody's contract when all I'm doing is extending out some guaranteed money past a year or two. So like when we redid Jimmy Graham's contract, we added a void year at the end.
Yeah, like Danny Trevathan, his ended up looking like what, a 7-year deal or something like that with all the void years that they added to it. It was bonkers.
So we did this with Andy Dalton, right? We paid Andy Dalton to not be here next year or this year because of a void year. Yep. So like if you look at it, like if I have a $21 million, bonus or guarantee, and it's on a 3-year deal, that means it's $7 million a year. If I add a void year, that 21 million is now, instead of being 7 million a year, right, 6.25 million or whatever it is a year. I can't do the math too quickly right now. But all it's doing is you're basically punting cap into the future to make things happen today. Roster bonuses are that, right? You'll see a lot of these guys get roster bonuses if they are on the roster at times like March 3rd. And Alex, this is a great point. Part of the reason that the Bucks are over the cap is there is a $35+ million void year at the end of the contract. You cannot, once a player is off your roster and it's a void year, you cannot renegotiate that. You cannot touch that. So that is a $35 million hit that needs to happen. So just be aware of that. So roster bonuses just like that. There was so let me pause there for a second. So when people say the cap is fake, it's true and false, right? I can add things on to the end of deals. I can add void years on. So I can make it fake for that season, but there comes a point in time when I have to pay the piper. Adeptus has the best way of saying it. It's basically like using my MasterCard and transferring my balance of my American Express onto the MasterCard, and then paying a little bit and then moving it back to a Visa to kind of get around all the caps. So Joseph, your question, and I'll show it in a second. How are they never? Part of the reason that they are over the cap and struggling this year is because of the amount of times that they have renegotiated deals. They have punted deals into the future. The reason when you sit down and talk about, right, if they were to cut Aaron Rodgers, that's $99 million in dead cap. That is because of all the void years and everything that they've done. I laugh at the fact that they have sat down and screwed over by doing these sort of things with David Bakhtiari and others. My take on this always is you punt money into the future when you are going to win. You don't do it when you are not going to win, because all you're doing is then limiting the cap space you'll have when you have a better team. The last thing, and it gets a little trickier, and there's some nuance that I still am not 100% on, but we'll keep hearing something about the salary cap floor. And so what you'll, I'm sorry, I love this comment. Yes, Eric, that does sound like this is the perfect quote for that. That sounds like a problem for future Homer. Absolutely. So basically what the NFL did is, and if there are any baseball fans out there, I'm going to shit all over baseball for a second. But you ever notice in baseball that teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Cubs, they have these massive salaries, $150 million plus. But what you also have is really bad teams like the Tampa Bay teams, the Pittsburgh teams, Oakland, that are spending $20 million in cap. And it creates this huge disparity. They are trying to lose because all of these franchises do things like revenue sharing. Baseball does it stupid. Football does it smarter. You have to spend over a 3-year period, you have to spend 90% of your available cap. There is no penalty for it other than if you don't, you have to pay the difference between that to the league, and it then gets redistributed out to everybody. So when Brad Spielberger, and I put Brad S because I can't say his name, otherwise Phil gets very upset because he's a blog boy.
PFF Brad.
PFF Brad, thank you. When he says we have $75 million in cap, that means that is the total active salary of everybody, not including roster bonus, not including signing bonuses, anything else. So when he says we have to spend $150 million, he's looking at that number plus additional signings that have to happen. The Bears are in a point where they have a ton of cap space, but they also have to spend to hit that minimum 90%.
Yep.
If they don't, they're writing a check to the league and not to a player. So that is probably the best way that I can explain it.
Yeah, and don't forget, and I'm sure you guys aren't, but this isn't just about the free agents. This is extensions. You're going to see in-house extensions. Jalen Johnson went on the Score earlier and was talking about him wanting to get a deal done with the Bears, of course. And he, by the way, did give a ton of praise to their quarterback of the Chicago Bears, Justin Fields, thinking that the Bears should build around him, and he's a leader and he just needs some more help, and it's up to the front office to do that for him. So that's notable when you have your teammates coming out and saying that. And it's not just his teammates. It's Michael Vick came out and was defending him. You see guys on other teams talk about Justin Fields, but don't forget, you got Chase Claypool's going to be up for an extension. That's not going to happen right now. Obviously, Darnell Mooney is another guy. Cole Kmet. You're going to have these guys they're going to be making some money. I think Cole Kmet is out of those cars. I think he gets done first. Would you agree with me there?
Listen to the way that he was talked about in the press conference, and understanding that it's not perfect, but you're still talking about a 23-year-old kid who made some incredible plays this season. Yes, there's always more to be desired upon, but the way they talked about him has him first and foremost in front.
Yeah, and again, I think that they're going to be getting him a running mate at that position that's going to make his job easier moving forward too.
The only reason I have this up, other than it's my BFF bullets, is there's a very good chance that they both can stay because, again, the Bears need a certain amount of cap to be able to be spent. However, something we highlighted and kind of talked about last week is if the Bears have identified Jesse Bates as a guy that they really like, they would cut Eddie and basically transfer that money over to what Bates would be spent for. Bates is only going to become available because he and Cincy have disagreed. He's been franchise tagged twice in a row. Whitehair is a little trickier because I think the player is Eddie is still, if we continue to get last season Eddie, totally worth the money.
Don't forget the quote from Flus when he was talking about Roquan, when he talks about any person in a position that they feel absolutely matters in this defense is ball production. Yes. And that is something that Eddie, he had issues with, but you saw ball production for Eddie with a defensive line that was almost non-existent, with a linebacker core that didn't have anybody of substance. Jack Sanborn, yes. Roquan, when he was here, yes. No. But you saw that there. And listen, I think that Eddie turned the corner, and I think he needed to be coached up hard. You guys have heard me talk about that. And I think, he took Jaquan Brisker under his wing, but I also don't think it's any coincidence that if you look back to when Jaquan Brisker's play started to back off a little bit, it's in correlation to when Eddie Jackson got hurt. I think there's a direct comparison there when you're breaking down the tape.
The pass rush too looked better because there was more hesitation because of Eddie Jackson being the ball hawk back there. So I completely agree with that.
Yep.
So I just put that up there and understanding that's a lot of word salad. I apologize. Today is going to be more word salad. So just prep yourself, right? So the next portion, Shane, we want to talk real quick is how to calculate the cap space. So roughly it's 220. A lot more people are expecting it to be closer to 225 when it all is said and done.
Yeah.
But let's just use the 220. You can, as a team, roll over cap space from year to year. So if you don't use X amount of dollars, you roll that into next year's cap. So the Bears had $9.5 million that roll over, which roughly makes us 230. If you look at Spotrac, they say that the cap numbers could be 225 next year, making basically the amount of money that the Bears have at 230. When you look at money committed next year, we still have $20 million in dead cap. That is Quinn, Trevathan, Mario Edwards, and Tariq Cohen is the vast majority, and then a bunch of small little numbers. Kind of talked about there's $98.6 million in salaries next year. If we use against Eddie and everything, it's 31 million of that is in two players. So you're talking about 118 million in total contracts, which is about 112-ish million in cap space for year one. So when you look at that, right, again, part of the reason the cap is not fake or not real is because there's a cap number, but I can inflate that number by underspending in 1 year. And now I have all of this.
And when you see when the Saints were contending, when you see them make a move and everybody's like, where are they getting this money? Well, Cars are showing you where they're getting it. They're essentially they're degrading their future for the now. If you're in contention, those are the moves you make 100%. The problem is we did that when we weren't in contention. Those were the big problems, and that means you're a bad run franchise.
And New Orleans has done it, and Green Bay has done it. I don't want to give them
Philly's got a ton of guys with void years. I mean, they're winning and they're in contention, but you look at some of the contracts with Philly at some point, that's going to be coming back to them. And I mean, they have a lot of guys come and due.
Absolutely. And so it gets really interesting very quickly. As a team, one of the worst things you could do is not be honest with yourself about where you truly are. It's one of the reasons I say that Sean Payton is overrated, because for a team that had Hall of Fame quarterback play, and the amount that they kept punting into the future and punting into the future and punting into the future, you can't win one Super Bowl that way. Green Bay to me is worse because they won 0 since 2000, what was it, 5, I think, or whatever it was that they won.
They won it in 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
So over the last 12 years, they have been continuing to punt, and the team has gotten worse and worse. And again, the Aaron Rodgers and Bakhtiari deals of punting everything out is just a bad look. So when you look at that, the last portion before I start to give you some more pictures and examples, so Cherie doesn't get a migraine and kill me. When you look at it, how to calculate cap impact, right? You'll see a couple of different numbers: years, total money, and guaranteed. So if I looked at it by default and I see a 3-year, $48 million deal, I would say $16 million a year for 3 years. But things like signing bonuses can get protracted. And so if you use an example of, I can pay a guy a minimum salary in year 1 and then grow that number out. So you have to look at things across the spectrum. What teams tend to do is front load or back load. So what front load means is I take the hit. So if I'm using that example of that $30 million guaranteed, I might take all 30 million of that in year 1. Right. And so the next 2 years, I'm just paying out lower salaries and do this and spread this out, early while I can.
If you remember, Cars, go back to the mid 2000s, and this is something that we have to look at too, in terms of restricted free agency. The Bears have so much money in available to them. They may be dabbling in that market.
Yeah.
With some guys. Do you remember John Tate? Yeah. He was a restricted free agent offensive lineman from Kansas City. I can't remember exactly what the numbers were, but Kansas City had something like $2 or $3 million in available cap space. The Bears had like 25, let's say. So they front loaded the hell out of that contract. So it essentially gave Kansas City 0 shot to match it.
And what we messed up with the Ryan Bates contract is because we did not front load it enough. Yep. And so when you see this, teams where we are, or teams with cap space, will front load a deal, right? Let's take the hit now and save me for later. Backloaded means that what I'm trying to do is I have a loaded team. I don't have a ton of cap space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the number look smaller in years 1 and maybe year 2, but 3 and 4, when I'm punting this all the way down, and again, I'll let future Homer handle this, is where the big cap hits come. I'm going to show you an example of this, of a backloaded contract. And this is a total eye chart, so my bad. But it is the Von Miller contract. When you look at what Von Miller's deal is, and if those cannot see it, I'm going to kind of read it to you. In year 1, Von Miller's contract value. So let's pull back. 6 years, 120 million. Total number here of 51 million guaranteed at signing. So those are the two numbers that you really want to look at the most. But Buffalo, which was up against the cap, got him in year 1 for a little bit over $5 million in cap space. Now, when you see this dead cap number, that is the guaranteed number minus that year 1 hit, right? And there's a little bit less because he ended up on injured reserve, which I think slightly impacts the deal. So what you can see right now is that that's where the deal came in. Now you look at the next year, right? It is 40 million in dead cap. So when I have a cap hit that is 5 million and a dead cap hit that is 45 million, that means if I were to cut Von Miller right now, it would cost me 40 million in cap space to make this as a move. Next year, it would cost the Buffalo Bills $22 million to make this as a deal. Now, when you look here at the back part of his deal, you see that his numbers start going up, where when he's 38 years old, he is going to supposedly make $30 million. I know all of you will be shocked that he will not make $30 million in 2027.
You should have threw the Aaron Rodgers contract up there just to make everybody really, really happy.
That's a good point. I should have. Yeah. But when you start talking about backloading deals, the only thing you ever worried about and the only thing that truly, truly impacts your cap is your total guaranteed money. Everything else outside of that becomes somewhat able to be manipulated. Now, HL asked this question, and if you kind of look at the second year here for Von Miller, most of that money that he's getting paid is in a roster bonus.
Yeah.
The reason that teams do that in the second year is, hey, you took a pay cut basically year one. We're just going to instantly give you $13 million if you are on this team as of March 1st or, day one of the new league year. You're going to get that money up front as a thank you. Here you go. And that will not be doled out over the 17-week season. So this is just an idea of, right, when I backload a contract, this is where those things come in. And this is why players, and we'll talk to you later, but why a Chris Jones or a Frank Clark from the Kansas City Chiefs may be available, because they have backloaded those. They're on the last year of those deals that have very minimal dead money. And the Kansas City Chiefs do not have a ton of cap space because the Patrick Mahomes deal is just now starting to kick in.
Yep.
So this is where the Bears can get very creative, because now you have a team that,
if Chris Jones becomes available, Cars, it's
sprint.
A layup.
It's
for this team.
Yes, absolutely. So I hope everybody understands kind of what I'm getting at, and it's again, I'm doing this just to make sure that everybody understands, like, when we see moves happen in free agency, this is why, right? And so the Bears' ability right now, and I should have grabbed this, the Bears have 120 million-ish in cap space. The next closest team is the Atlanta Falcons, and they have 67. I see this statement a lot. We are not going to be the only team, but we're going to be able to offer more than anybody else. Washington, as it stands right now, cannot tag Payne because they have $13 million in cap space.
But Cars, what about the core?
Yes. Well, I'm going to kill you right now. But Carson Wentz's deal, which was backloaded, carries no guaranteed money. So they can cut him and save $25 million and have the space to put in and keep Daron Payne. Why do I think that they won't tag him? The Redskins have a terrible offensive line. They have no quarterback. They don't really have great corners. They just have a very dominant front four. Where Jonathan Allen's deal kicks in, they have Sweat's deal that's still there. And, oh, yeah, by the way, they have Chase Young that's going to need a contract extension after next year. No team is going to spend. So Allen's deal will be about 23-ish million or 21 million next year, 23 the year after. No team in the NFL is going to go out on a $240 million cap and spend 115-ish million on 4 players that all play at the same position. It's just criminally negligent. It's, and this I don't understand. Like, there's always a limit, Rico, but if I can sit down and pay you 25 million and the next closest person and still have room to add 3 more studs, 4 more studs, 5 more studs, then that's what I'm going to do.
Yep.
So I understand. understand that other people can get involved, but no one, when it comes down to it, Deron Payne plays the 3 technique for us, a position of need that we value more than anybody else. There's no way to see it any other way than that the Bears will pay what is necessary to make a move like that happen.
Oh, they have so much available to them. They're, like you said, they're going to, you're going to see deals, and there's going to be, quote unquote experts, and there's going to be fans trying to figure out why the Bears paid them this much. And then they're going to look at the year 1 number, and they're going to get even more sick to their stomach. But again, the Bears are looking, Cars talked about it pre-show, they're going to structure so many of these, with the money up front, but then they're also going to balance it out with some other deals. But anything that they're doing is looking down the road to QB1 when he's going to be paid. A lot of these things are going to be structured towards that.
And the other portion we have to view is that, some of these guys are going to want to win. How many of these guys that we have sat down and heard positive things coming about Justin Fields from these guys post game? They can picture him being an ascending player that they could win with.
Yeah.
Deron Payne has flat out said, I want to get paid. I want to win, but I want to get paid. If you look at the teams with cap space and a young quarterback that have the best chance of doing that, the Bears are going to be first and foremost with so many people. It's not even funny.
Yeah, and I mean, it's always nice to say that winning is first and foremost, and 99.9% of the time, especially when you're talking about a guy that's 24 or 25 years old, 26 years old, it's not about winning first and foremost. It's about the biggest payday, always.
Because this is most of these guys, this is going to be their biggest contract. You have to understand the way that we've kind of talked down some of these people is, if Deron Payne is 25, he's going to go out and sign a 4 to 5 year deal. At 30, even if he's performing well, look at the way that we talk about Javon Hargrave versus Deron Payne. It takes millions off of their deals instantly the second you are over 30. So these guys have a window right now to go do it. The Ndamukong Suh kind of thing of where I got paid and then I took a pay cut to go play at Tampa and go win. That's what a lot of them will do. But you, as an NFL player, especially when they added the salary cap inside for draft picks, you have one payday that you can really expect, especially if you're a defensive lineman. Maybe as a quarterback, as a wide receiver, that looks a little differently. But if you're in the trenches, you have one shot to get paid, and this is it.
Yeah, and listen, there is another factor to this. You talk about the money. Deron Payne, who knows? I don't know Deron Payne personally. He's a Southern guy, got drafted by the Commanders. Maybe he doesn't want to play in cold weather. Maybe he wants to get back down south. He's from Alabama. Maybe, he wants to go play for the Falcons. Who knows? There's factors. But if you have a lot of money available and you have to spend it, that puts you in a position of power. That is always the biggest factor in the NFL, because cash is king. And what's the average career in the NFL? Is it like 3.7
years?
Yeah. So these guys, you have to take full advantage of the market and cash in when you can cash in. And that's why when the free agency clock hits and the NFL offseason is open, people aren't looking back and saying, no, this team had 3 wins. They're like, oh, these guys have $165 million to spend. All right, let's go talk to these guys.
Well, and that kind of brings me to the next point of, Jimmy was saying like it's year one. You also have to look at kind of the other reason I showed you that Von Miller deal is when you look at next year, the Bears have $67 million in total cap assigned. The cap is expected to go up $20 million a year. So the cap next year at 220, the year after will be 240. So the reason when you again look at that Von Miller deal where they punted some of that big money to year two, that's the other thing the Bears can still do, right? Cody Whitehair becomes more of a cut perspective. Eddie Jackson becomes, so even that cap number can get smaller. But when you look at what the Bears can do, and you go out to 2025, right? 2025 is when the Bears can give Justin Fields that 5th-year extension, right? That one little year that ends up being about 40-ish. I think it will be about 35 to 40-ish million at that point that they can do this. The Bears really have 3 years to extend these guys and get this money in before they have to worry about the quarterback deal. So yes, if they go out and say they throw 50 million at 3 different guys or whatever it is,
right?
They can extend that number by making it 6 guys and 50 million and spread those hits up over 2 players. And so, these things are really, really matter. And it really, everything we've talked about is guys that want to be here and want to win, but you also have to put your money where your mouth are. Guys are not going to sit down and take, yes, I'm worth 20, but I think I can win here. I'm going to go take 10. That's not the case. So it's going to have to be finding a middle ground. Again, if folks truly believe in Justin, they know that if you have a quarterback in this league, you can win. Yeah. And so that's what really matters. And Jimmy, if you're against overpaying, then you're against free agency because you always overpay in free agency. And the Bears are at a point that they have to pay right now. The Bears have not spent enough the last 2 years. They absolutely have to pay. They're going to have to overpay. It is part and parcel to what Ryan Pace has done. We just have to extend it.
Yeah, Rico, I understand that you're trying to hammer home the same point over and over again, and that sounds good in theory. Everybody wants a player to be here, but maybe you showed up late and didn't hear us talk about this for the first 35 minutes of the show or whatever. The Bears have to spend up to the 3-year floor. So they have, what was the final number?
It's about $150 million.
Yeah, so they have to spend $150 million. And you can say whatever you want about players thinking that culture is number one, and that is 100% false. Players want to be paid, and I get it. You want guys that want to be here. The Bears are in a position where they have so much money available, they have to spend it. And if they don't, Cars told you, they're going to be writing a check to the league, and then you're paying everybody, every other team in the NFL.
You're paying
leftover money.
You're not paying someone that can help you. You're paying the league for not meeting the floor. It's a tricky situation, and it's again what Ryan Pace truly screwed up. We'll just ignore that next comment. That's just ridiculous. That's not going to happen. If you haven't listened to any of the shows, we talked about how the roster was not built to win. They were built to lose. If you think we're going to lose 14 games annually, I'm sorry. You're wrong. You can't. It's the team this
in
year
Rico's
was
world. The money available in Chicago doesn't matter. They're going to say that they're a 3-win team and they're going to go someplace else. So if that's what you believe, Rico, that's fine, man. It's amazing analysis, and that's cool. It's factually wrong.
It's just not the way it is. These guys love the game, but they also have to get paid, right? If your average shelf life is 4 years, if your average shelf life is, if you can make it to 8 years and get that contract, this is life-changing money. They're going to do that.
Yep.
But I think it's what's really interesting about all of this is when you start to talk about like actual players, right? And so what we've talked a little bit about here is the cap space situation is different, and we have space, and there are a bunch of teams that don't. One that keeps popping up here is the Arizona Cardinals and DeAndre Hopkins. Not necessarily a move that I am super duper thrilled about, but I understand as part of a room. He's a guy that you have to go out and get. But when you look at what a DeAndre Hopkins trade looks like, again, you see those cap hit numbers of $30 million. That is not the case for what the Bears would have to pay. Once you start taking over some of the accelerations and everything, when you see that yearly cash number, that is the amount of money that is actually his salary. The Bears would only be on the books for $19.45 million in year one. They would be on the books for the $14.915 million for year two. So if I need to get to $150 million of spending, going out and getting a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, which wouldn't cost a heavy investment in draft picks because of where Arizona is and how they've mismanaged the cap, you can do this and then start to fill in space. I understand that he's not going to be here in 2 years, and so there's a lot of concern. I keep seeing a lot of folks saying, we need to get young. We need to get guys that will be here in 2 to 3 years. Hey, listen, at the wide receiver position, those guys don't become available right now. So you have to look, like we've heard of terms like bridge quarterback in the times past. DeAndre Hopkins would be a bridge wide receiver to get us.
It's buying you time to find
the
next guy. It's not. It's always fun to say we're building this to be sustained for the next 5 years, next 6 years. It's pretty rare that happens in the NFL. D-Hop is going to be a 2-year investment, just like Carr said. And that's fine. That's fine. That gives you more time to use the draft picks that you're going to acquire when you trade down with Indy or Carolina or whomever that happens to be. It buys you time. It buys you time to see if you can unlock Chase Claypool. It buys you time to see if Darnell Mooney could make that step. It buys you time to improve your offensive line. It's part of it. You have to have some guys, and let's not act like a 30-year-old guy or a 31-year-old guy. We're not talking about a guy that's 36 or a guy that's 37.
This isn't Jimmy Graham. Yeah.
Right. This guy is 30, but he's still got a lot of things on the field that he can do that the Bears can absolutely use. It's going to come at a price financially, but the Bears have to spend that. And if you can tell me, I mean, Cars, let's before we move on, what are you looking at in potentially like for a D-Hop deal, like maybe a 3 and a 6 or something like that, or a 4th rounder and and maybe a 4th and a pick swap, you know what I mean? Later. It's nothing. I mean, somebody put out on Twitter today was talking about, 2nd rounder, stuff like that. It's just not. That's Chase Claypool. You paid a more premium price because of age, because he is on his rookie deal for another couple of years. He's 24 years old. That makes his acquisition more expensive. D-Hop is 30. D-Hop is already being paid a ton of money. So that's going to drive his price down. But the ultimate factor there is, again, DeAndre Hopkins may not want to be here. Maybe he doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild. The way that you can potentially get him off of that no trade clause is restructuring his contract to give him more money in the first 2 years. And that is What you have to do, you have money to spend. That's how you work it. This is poker. You have to, oh yeah, I don't want to go to Chicago. They're rebuilding. Well, what if I restructure the deal and I'm going to be giving you more? Oh, all right, let's go. Fist bumps. Hey, JF1, QB1. Let's go. It's the way that works.
And I think Benjamin brought up a great point, right?
Be all over it. Yep.
Amari Cooper, who by the way is a guy that we would still be all over and could be available. Cleveland sent a 5th round pick and swapped in a 6th round pick with Dallas to make that happen. Amari Cooper still put up 1,000-yard season, and was still a dominant player. They did that because they wanted to get to CeeDee Lamb. So these guys, Devontae Adams was more of a weird move. It's just not usual to see these guys going for 1st-round picks anymore. In AJ Brown, you make that move because he's on the other side of 30, and
AJ Brown was 20, just turned 24 when they traded for him.
That's why you do it.
Exactly.
These other guys, you're talking 4th, 5th rounders. If you remember back in the day, Cleveland took on the contract of who was that quarterback? From Denver, Brock Osweiler.
Yep.
And because they had the cap space just to buy basically a second round pick. That's the sort of thing that the Bears can do right now. And it really makes a difference. And so the last thing I wanted to kind of show real quick is like what you can look for is really in free agency. We're going to see front loaded deals mixed and matched between 23 and 24. You can maybe even add 25 in there.
Yeah.
But what you're really looking for is a heavy investment in the next 2 to 3 years before we have to worry about Fields' extension kicking in. If Daron Payne does not come, if he gets tagged or something along those lines, you'll see something like a Javon Hargrave come in for a 2 to 3 year deal. He's an older player, not as, still very good, not as exciting as staying young. But you'll see these vets come in 2 to 3 year deals that will come in with good money attached to them, but will be able to be coming off the books because the Bears will be looking to draft guys to supplant them in the near future. Bears are going to be a destination for potentially buying picks because of this cap space. So it wouldn't be unusual to see a name of somebody come across and the Bears literally just take on that salary for a 2nd round and a 2nd round pick for something crazy. So I have a list of like Cam Jordan that's down there. I don't think that's a name that the Bears would go after, but Cam Jordan's a guy who's going to be probably moved this offseason to save New Orleans. Eric Armstead is another guy who doesn't have a lot of money guaranteed. DeForest Buckner has no additional guarantees, so no dead money. Those are guys that could be moved off of to potentially save their franchise's money. And Chris Jones and Frank Clark, right? These are guys that you're all going to see from where their teams are in cap space to the amount of dead cap that these guys offer. These are the easier type of names for a team to go on and move out to quickly gain 20 plus million in cap space.
Yeah. And just real quick, like Alex, we just talked about this and again, and I know you guys can get upset and sick of talking about money. The Bears are going to have the ability to restructure the deal to make it, very beneficial for DeAndre Hopkins. If they want him enough, they can restructure the deal to make it very beneficial in year 1, in year 2 for him to want to waive that no trade clause to come here. And
Dallas couldn't afford him.
No.
Right? Dallas right now has under 10 million of cap space for next season. They would have to make additional moves. If they wanted him to be here, they would have kept Amari Cooper. Yeah. Right? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for what that happens. New England, they absolutely could, but I just don't see that because they've got such big question marks Thank God Phil isn't here because I think Mac Jones does get moved this offseason as part of this.
Yeah, it's. I think it's trending that way too, Cars. We talked about it, and I mean, for the first time in a long time, they've been having a lot of offensive line issues. I mean, Cole Strange has, he seems to be a centerpiece of that line moving forward, but there's a lot of questions there, and let's be honest, when you're putting Matt Patricia in place to lead your offense, I think you have some questions that go way beyond that even. So yeah,
there are 11 teams right now that have cap space to afford DeAndre Hopkins. Like point blank, 11 teams. And when you look at it, right, if you're Hopkins, are you going to go to the Atlanta Falcons with their question mark? Do you want Daniel Jones throwing to you? Are you going to go to Seattle with Geno? Are you going to go to Baltimore, which looks like most likely they and Lamar may be done? Is that where you're going to go? Are you going to go to Houston with all those question marks, or Las Vegas with no quarterback? Are you going to go to Indy with no quarterback? There aren't a lot of places for all these guys to go. When you get a cap number that big, it becomes a massive issue for you.
Well, and that too. I mean, look at Vegas. Vegas just invested in Devontae Adams financially in a big way. Are they going to be willing to restructure to make him happy financially for the next couple of years? I would doubt it, even though they have cap room.
They do. And everybody that keeps sitting down and talking about, like, let's go get Devontae Adams, have to understand that if the Raiders are going to go trade him, that of their 20 million available, almost 21 million, they lose $17 million of cap space to move off of Devontae Adams. It's not
And
going to happen.
Now you have a quarterback, and now you don't have Devontae Adams.
Yes. So other than that, it's all likely, right? It gets really kind of crazy when you look at it. But I guess all I'm trying to do here, folks, is the season's a loss. All I'm trying to do is let you know of what you need to keep your eyes and ears out for in this offseason. It's going to be heavy spending. The Bears have to spend. That does mean that there are going to be some guys that they overspend for. But every free agent is going to have a play, and will be making a call to us more than anybody else because they know that we've got the space. And yeah, if I'm Daron Payne, I want to go win. But if I want to make 20 million plus a season, there are 7 teams that have that amount of cap space. And nerd alert, none of them are winning, right? So when you look at all these spaces, all these things, all of these moves, if you want to get paid, yes, and Ryan Cox is right, I think here, Shane. You and I are going to go fight about Tevin Jenkins now.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
But, all these guys that want to get paid, if they want to go to a winning culture, they're going to have to get traded for because they don't have the space. If you want to win, you want to go to Kansas City. Guess what? They have cap problems next year. They have to manipulate things and move things around. You want to go to Buffalo? They have cap problems. You want to go to LA? They have some of the worst cap problems, right? So understanding that these guys are in free agency, none of these guys are going to be like, I could make 24 million, but I'm 25 years old. I'm going to go take 6 to go win a Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, we talked about it last night. You and I talked about it. We talked about it with Adam Rank. You got to throw Cooper Kupp and the Rams, that situation there. Because I mean,
I think McVay is done.
Oh, 100% Cars. He's told his entire staff, if you want to go look for something different, I'm not going to hold you back. I mean, that tells you, listen, if you can, he's 36 years old. If you can get $100 million to analyze games on TV,
while you've got a young kid at home.
Well, absolutely. But then you do that for a year or 2 or even 3 or 4 years, he's going to have his choice. I mean, I know I threw this out there and it's down the road, but who maybe he wants to get away from the NFL. Maybe he could replace Saban in Alabama and be there for the next 15 years at 40 years old and get paid just as much as he would in the NFL and not have the craziness, 24/7, 365. So he's got every option at his feet.
Look at Sean Payton. 1 year out making fat money, and he is so in demand still. Teams are going to have to trade. Supposedly New Orleans wants a first-round pick if you want to go take Sean Payton, and people are still talking to him.
Yeah.
So if you're McVay and you retire, so what if you're still under contract and the Rams still control your rights? Someone will trade for you. But in the meanwhile, if you do this for 1 or 2 years, he's going to be making $20 million plus a year to sit behind a TV box. Chucky had to take the most ridiculous deal ever offered a head coach to leave the booth because he had such a great deal.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense for these guys. He won his ring. Had he not won his ring, I think this is different. But that team is in cap hell, and we are now in a position we are that to win. And if you think winning trumps all, good luck convincing a guy at that talent to go for $1 million. Like, hey, Daron Payne, I know you had a all-pro year. You just did 11.5 sacks. You were dominant. But let's go win this. Here's $1.5 million. It's not going to happen.
Sign me up, coach.
Yeah. I know these other teams are offering you 10 and 15 and 20, but we'll give you 1.5. Sound good? Sound good. Perfect. But yeah, I mean, that's really it. When you start listening into the season, and I should have, let me find this. I should have put this in, but there are dates that we should probably be aware of.
Oh yeah.
Right, for when all these things are going to happen. There are a few key things, and partially why I sit down and think, that the meals will not, or the deals will not happen until after we get through the draft season, after we get through probably prospecting and all of that. So you would picture, where did I have this? I can't find it right now. But it's basically like the league year is
March 15th, I believe. Yeah. Right?
Let me look at this key. This is really professional right now, but as we
clean it up in post, as they say, cars.
Yeah, exactly. We'll clean it up later.
It was like my intro.
So here we go. So the season, right? Super Bowl happens, Pro Bowl happens. March. The NFL Scouting Combine is February 28th through March 6th. The franchise tag starts March 7th, which is also when college pro days start. College pro days start at that point. Between then and April 19th is when all visits happen. So when you start looking at free agency kicks off with that stupid legal tampering thing from March 13th to the 15th.
Yep.
The new league year starts March 15th.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to know that's when you get all those tweets from Rap Sheet and, saying that when the new league year opens on 3/15, the Chicago Bears are expected to sign, nobody because they have 3 wins and nobody wants to play for a lot of money. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes.
Exactly. So once March 15th happens, I'm going to expect a flurry of deals basically for the next week, right? Of Bears probably heavy the first couple of days. It is after that point that I would expect to see the Bears make the trade. No later. I think the latest that I've seen a first round pick moved is April 17th.
Yep.
The thing that I will say, and I don't know how you feel about this, Shane, the closer it gets to the draft, the less the value of the pick is. the only reason I say that, and then I'll let you go. Sorry. When the Rams made the trade up for Jared Goff, that is the latest that it happened.
Yeah.
And that is because nobody believed in the quarterbacks really in that draft.
Right. And I think what you're going to see with this cars, and I mean, listen, it's all going to ramp up. You know, the new league year starts March 15th, like we said, but this is really going to get kicked off at the combine. That is really the quote unquote opening of free agency when everybody is there. They're not just talking to draft picks, everybody. Deals are going down, contract numbers are exchanged, trades are consummated behind closed doors and announced later. That's where you're going to see a lot of stuff come into play. And what's going to be fascinating to this is, again, CJ Stroud is going to end up being a wild card in all of this cars. Ryan Cox, like you said, talked about the NIL, but there's going to be teams. Everybody knows what Indy's intentions are. I mean, when your owner comes out and says that he's sick of the retread quarterbacks and, you know, got to get the young guy and do that. So every other team in the NFL has read that article in The Athletic also. But that's why you're going to get teams that are down lower. You're going to see a team probably like Carolina that's going to come to you with a massive offer to blow your doors in, to say, we don't want you talking to Indy. We don't want you talking to Houston. And you're right. That could come very early in the process. We're not going to fuck around. We're going to bring the vault. We're going to throw it at your feet, and we hope that you take it.
And again, the reason that's beneficial, the one thing that continues to make me trump Indianapolis is if anyone has read that Athletic article, and I truly encourage you to do so, because I briefly talked about it, but 2023 was kind of the year of bad owners, between, you know, Stephen Ross costing the Miami Dolphins a draft pick for the Tom Brady stuff, everything that Irsay has done. You know, he hates losing to the division. He would hate if the Houston Texans sat there second overall and drafted whoever it is, if it's Bryce Young, if it's Will Levis, if it's somehow Anthony Richardson, and that guy turned into a franchise quarterback, and that Indianapolis was too proud to move up because they didn't want to overpay, which we overpaid to move up for Justin Fields to a slight degree because it's a quarterback position. You have to overpay for the quarterback position. If you don't, you buy retreads and you hope that you get lucky. So the best thing for us is that Houston is the pick right after us.
Right. And where I don't want to, it's not blowback, but you went from 20 to 11. And when you got past Justin Fields, there was Mac Jones, and then you're talking, who was the guy that ended up in Minnesota that I'm blanking on? Texas.
Kellen Mond.
Kellen Mond. So that became, you know, a factor, obviously. And to me, I mean, you still make that trade 10 times out of 10 to go from 20 to, and never forget, to show you how crazy the NFL draft process is. The Giants dropped back to 20 and they drafted a guy, and he's not even on their roster anymore. And Kadarius Toney, he's in Kansas City. So
it's insane. And so I will always love to see the way that this plays out. And obviously we'll be talking about draft prospects, you know, as part of Draft Mob. But when you really look at what this is set up to do, again, they have to spend. They're going to spend. It's going to be quick. It's going to be furious. These conversations are already happening behind, you know, closed doors. And, you know, hypothetically speaking, if you had a defensive tackle who was a free agent working, you know, that was one of your clients, would you spend X amount? Like, these things are already starting to happen. And yeah, it's you're going to see this fast and furious. And when these guys come through and sign on the dotted line, you're going to see, it's going to make that Julius Peppers, Brandon Elena presser. It may take 2 days
Chester
to get
Taylor.
through the pressers. Yeah, Chester Taylor. It may take 2 days to get through the pressers for what this potentially could be.
Yeah,
expect it.
Yeah, and it is. It's going to be a whirlwind. And you guys know, you've heard us talk about it. We're hitting the 90-minute mark here.
Yep.
This is gonna bring to a close Cars Keys for this season, unless something happens. Who knows? Cars and I get a little bit crazy sometimes. Maybe we'll get bored and we'll do a pop-up Cars Keys show. Who knows? That could be known to happen, correct, Cars? We like to surprise people sometimes. Who knows? But we're transitioning our programming over to our off-season draft mob. We are in full swing with that, and the all 22 vault for college players is loading up and being cut, so we can provide you guys with analysis that you can see and hear our analysis live on air. If you are a TTNL network patron, you're gonna hear guys like me, guys like Cars, DDP. We're gonna talk about we're going to show you what we like about Jalen Carter and what gives us pause and what worries us. We're going to talk about Will Anderson. Phil is a Miles Murphy guy. Cars and I aren't there with Miles Murphy. We are more inclined to like Wilson. But that's what makes this draft process and this off-season process great. And draft mob isn't just going to be about the draft fully. We will show you if the Bears go out and sign a defensive lineman in free agency. We're going to show you on tape how that's going to affect what they do in the draft. And all 22 is always going to be involved. And I don't think this is any breaking news here. Everybody knows that Chris Zorich is a part of this network. He has agreed to come on Draft Mob with Cars and myself and Phil when we're breaking down the defensive lineman. This is a guy that has lived it, has played in the NFL, knows the D lineman life. So he has agreed to come on for the TTNL network patrons and break down some tape live on air with us for the D line. Eric Kramer, former Chicago Bears quarterback, Cars teen idol, is also agreed to do the same, not just the quarterbacks, talking about some of the skill positions. He's agreed to come on and do that. So if you aren't a TTNL patron, head over to the tapeneverlies.com. We would appreciate it if you sign up. The link is right there on the banner going across. Just to let you guys, if you aren't a patron, know how it works. It's $7. You get charged the first of the month every single month. You're not tied in. There's no contracts. If you decide that it's something that you don't like or something that you can't afford or just something that you're not comfortable with, you can drop it and you're out the $7 for that month. But if you're a Bears fan, if you love the off season and then getting ready for free agency and the draft, I think you'll love it. And the patrons in the chat, I'm sure, will tell you much of the same. So go over there, sign up, get ready, be a better Bears fan. And Cars, it's been exciting, man. 21 episodes of this. It's impressive. You know, when I reached out to you, I don't think you're expecting this, and you're like, I don't know, is anybody going to watch? And this has really become, I think, a fan favorite and a big part of this network in pretty fast order. I think a lot of fans love everything that you bring to the table. This is everything that you guys see here is 99.9% Cars. I'm just kind of along for the ride and doing stuff like that. So give him all the props for this show. This is his baby. But we will be back next season with Cars Keys. Maybe. With a couple I might
get canned during Draft Mob. We'll see how that works.
Yeah, the B in Draft Mob is Bears nerd, so you got to be there. But you know how it is, man. You got the number one clip in the history of TTNL Network. The Bears have traded up, so can't wait, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Get over to the tapeneverlies.com, sign up, check us out. Like I said, Cars, you're the man. This is your show, man. Send us off the right way. What do you got to say?
Really, I mean, thank you again, everybody. This has been kind of crazy, and I appreciate you letting me nerd out with charts and graphs and craziness. And hopefully you kind of understand maybe a little bit of the way that I look at things. And obviously it is different than with the way that Phil does. So thank you for giving me a space so that I don't have to keep talking to my wife about this, who could care less about anything Bears related. So you've all given me a forum to kind of to nerd out. And I really, again, I say it a lot of different episodes, but thank you everybody so much for listening, for the interactions on Facebook. Yes, Stephanie, it's true. You hate listening. It's fine. Really appreciate what everybody, the interactions on Facebook, on Twitter, maybe minus the interaction on Facebook today. But really, thank you guys. Please don't stop interacting. Please don't stop reaching out. I love talking football with each and every one of you. So thank you so much.
Look at this is Steph being so active in the chat room. I think.
Oh boy, I must have forgot to do the dishes.
I think he did. I think he deserves a night of bliss after his 21 episodes. Get the bubble bath ready.
Oh,
maybe a third Karstensen can
that's
popping up.
Yeah, how's your sleep going?
Mine is better. It's
actually, so you're getting like 6 hours now?
Well, yeah, that is better. My daughter, I tell her every day, you are lucky, you are so beautiful, and I love you. But now the problems that we are finding out is she's doing really good with the sleep. It's just the other 18 hours in the day where she's the goddamn devil. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
See, look, it's already happened, Shane. We're already there. It's a good time.
Yeah, well, listen, Cars has the cure for headaches. Also, he's the Bears nerd. He'll help you there.
I appreciate it. And thank you, Steph, for letting me do this and letting me skip bedtime a couple of nights a week to talk about this. It is Bears fandom is a sickness, I think, is what we all agree on. And I appreciate being sick with all of you.
All right, we are out of here. Thank you guys. Thanks for all the support. We love 87% of you, pretty much. But
give or take.
We'll see. But we'll be back. TTNL Network, keeping it 100. We're going to be off for a couple of days. I think there's going to be any programming this weekend. I think we all deserve a little bit of a break. We were live Sunday. Phil was live Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and we did Thursday and everything. So it's been a long few days. We'll take a couple of days off and we'll be right back at it again next week. But 2023 off season's here. We got money to spend. Number one pick. Steph's got a headache, but party's just starting. Love you guys. See you later.
I love